She was about to marry the man of her dreams. He was about to inherit an empire. 2 days before their wedding, one devastating discovery would turn love into the most dangerous game of all.
Ariel, wait, this isn't what it looks like.
2 days before our wedding, Damon. 2 days?
She vanished without a trace, leaving him at the altar. But when she returned exactly 1 year later, at his wedding to another woman, she wasn't the heartbroken bride who had fled.
Ariel, what are you doing here?
Hello, Damon. Surprised to see me? I now own 40% of your company.
She had traded her wedding dress for a boardroom suit, her broken heart for a battle plan. But when their eyes met across that crowded room, the fire between them burned as fierce as ever. Can a love built on lies survive a war built on truth? And will the woman who came for revenge leave with something far more dangerous, his heart, once again? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The sun shone brightly over New York City as Ariel James hurried down Fifth Avenue. At 27, she was beautiful, with dark skin that glowed in the sunlight and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. Today was a big day at the art gallery where she worked. They were hosting a charity event, and everyone who was anyone would be there. "Don't forget to smile at the rich folks," her boss Martha reminded her. "They're the ones who keep our doors open." Ariel nodded and straightened her simple black dress. She wasn't from money like most of the guests would be. Her parents had worked hard their whole lives in her small hometown of Millfield to give her opportunities they never had. "I'll make sure they all feel welcome," Ariel said, arranging the name cards on the welcome table. The gallery doors opened, and people in expensive clothes began to pour in. Ariel greeted them with her warm smile, checking names off her list. Then he walked in. Damon Rourke, 30 years old, with dark hair and a smile that had graced the covers of business magazines. He was one of the city's most eligible bachelors and a powerful real estate developer whose family name was on buildings all over Manhattan. "I don't see my name on your list," he said with a charming smile. Ariel looked down at her clipboard. "I'm sorry, Mr. Rourke, Damon Rourke." His eyes never left her face. "I don't see your name, Mr. Rourke. Did you RSVP?" "I'm afraid not. I was in Tokyo until this morning, but I heard this was the place to be tonight." He leaned in. "I'd hate to miss out on such beautiful art." Ariel felt her cheeks warm. "Let me see what I can do." Later that night, as the event wound down, Damon approached her again. "Thank you for letting me in. The show was fantastic." "I'm glad you enjoyed it," Ariel said, gathering empty champagne glasses. "I'd like to thank you properly. Dinner, perhaps?" Ariel hesitated. Men like Damon Rourke didn't date women like her. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because men like you don't date women like me. They just have fun with them." Damon's smile faded. "You don't know me." "And you don't know me," Ariel replied. "That's what dinner is for." He handed her his card. "Call me if you change your mind." For 3 days, Ariel stared at his card. Finally, her roommate Tasha had enough. "Girl, if you don't call that man, I will," Tasha exclaimed. "Do you know how many women would kill to have Damon Rourke's number?" "That's exactly why I shouldn't call. I'm not like those women." "No, you're better. Now call him before I steal that card," Ariel finally called. To her surprise, Damon answered himself, not some assistant. "I was beginning to think you'd thrown my card away," he said. "I almost did," Ariel admitted. He laughed. "Honesty, I like that. Are you free tomorrow night?" Their first date wasn't what Ariel expected. Instead of some fancy restaurant where she'd feel out of place, Damon took her to a small Italian place in Brooklyn. "The owner was my first tenant when I started in real estate," Damon explained as they sat in a cozy corner booth. "Best lasagna in the city." As they ate, Damon asked about her life, her Dr. Eames. No man had ever seemed so interested in her thoughts before. "So why art?" he asked. "What draws you to it?" "Art tells stories without words," Ariel said. "It connects people across time, across differences. I've always wanted to be part of that connection." Damon nodded slowly. "That's beautiful. Most people I know only see art as an investment." "And what about you? Why real estate?" Something flickered in his eyes. "My father was in real estate, and his father before him. It's the family business. But is it what you wanted? Damon looked surprised by the question. No one's ever asked me that before. By the end of the night, Ariel felt something she hadn't expected. A connection. When Damon walked her to her door, he didn't try to come inside. He simply kissed her cheek and thanked her for a wonderful evening. "Can I see you again?" he asked. Ariel nodded, already knowing she was stepping into something that could either be magical or break her heart completely. Over the next few months, Ariel and Damon became inseparable. He took her to places she'd only dreamed of: weekend trips to Paris, private concerts, dinners at restaurants with month-long waiting lists. But what Ariel loved most were the quiet nights at her small apartment, where Damon seemed most relaxed. "My father would have a heart attack if he knew I preferred your tiny kitchen to the dining room at the country club," Damon said one night as they made pasta together. "Is his opinion that important?" Ariel asked, stirring the sauce. Damon's smile faded. "The Rourke name comes with expectations." "Like what?" "Like who I should date, who I should marry." Ariel stopped stirring. "And who is that?" "Someone like Madeline Grant. Our fathers have been business partners for 30 years. They've practically had us engaged, see, NC birth." "I see." Ariel tried to keep her voice steady. "And is that what you want?" Damon turned her to face him. "If it was, would I be here with you?" 6 months into their relationship, the tabloids caught on. Photos of them appeared in magazines, and suddenly everyone knew Damon Rourke was dating a nobody from a small town. "Rourke Air slums it with gallery girl," read one particularly nasty headline. "Don't let them get to you," Damon said when he found Ariel crying. "They don't know us." But the attention brought something else: pressure from Damon's family. "My father wants to meet you," Damon said one evening. "He's invited us to dinner at the mansion." Ariel felt sick. "Do you think that's a good idea?" "It doesn't matter. If you're in my life, you'll have to meet him eventually." William Rourke was exactly what Ariel had feared: cold, calculating, and clearly disapproving. His Mancio N was like a museum filled with priceless art and furniture that no one was meant to use. "So, Miss James," William said during dinner, "Damon tells me you work at a gallery. Is that a hobby or a career?" "A career, Mr. Rourke. I have a degree in art history." "How quaint." He smiled without warmth. "And your family? What business are they in?" "My father is a mechanic. My mother is a nurse." William's eyebrows rose. "Hard-working people, I'm sure." Later, as they left, Ariel heard William say to Damon, "Don't forget who you are, son. The Rourke name has standards to uphold." In the car, Damon was quiet. "Your father hates me," Ariel said. "He doesn't know you." "He knows enough. I'm not from your world, Damon." Damon pulled the car over and turned to her. "Do you love me?" The question caught her off guard. "Yes." "Then that's all that matters." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a diamond ring that must have cost more than Ariel's parents' house. "Marry me, Ariel. Be my wife." Tears filled her eyes. "Are you sure? Your family will learn to love you as I do. Say yes." "Yes," she whispered. The engagement announcement made national news. Overnight, Ariel became the focus of intense media scrutiny. Who was this nobody who had captured Damon Rourke's heart? The wedding planning was overwhelming. William Rourke insisted on handling everything, booking the grandest venues, hiring the most expensive planners. "It's too much," Ariel told Damon one night. 300 guests? I don't even know 300 people." "It's not just our wedding," Damon explained. "It's a Rourke event. There are expectations." "But what about our expectations? Our dreams?" Damon held her close. "As long as you're at the end of that aisle, nothing else matters." 2 weeks before the wedding, Ariel noticed a change in Damon. He was distant, constantly on his phone, working late. When she asked, he blamed wedding stress and business pressures. "My father's been on my case about the new development in Tribeca," he said, "and the wedding details are driving everyone crazy." Ariel tried to understand, but something felt wrong. Then, 2 days before the wedding, she got a text from an unknown number. Check the presidential suite at the Grand Hotel, now. She shouldn't have gone. Deep down, she knew what she would find, but she had to see for herself. The hotel staff recognized her as Damon's fiancée and gave her a key card without question. When she opened the suite door, she heard them before she saw them. Damon and a blonde woman tangled in the sheets of the king-sized bed. Damon? Ariel's voice was barely a whisper. They both looked up, shock on their faces. The woman, Madeline Grant, Ariel realized, had the decency to look embarrassed. Damon just looked scared. Ariel, wait! This isn't... Don't! Ariel held up her hand. Don't you dare say this isn't what it looks like. My father threatened to cut me off, Damon said, scrambling out of bed, wrapping a sheet around his waist, to take away my position in the company, the inheritance, everything. So, you slept with her? Ariel's voice was eerily calm now. 2 days before our wedding. It was a mistake. One time, it didn't mean anything. Madeline scoffed. That's not what you said an hour ago, Damon. Ariel looked between them, suddenly seeing everything clearly. How long has this been going on? It's complicated, Damon said. No, it's actually very simple. Ariel slipped the enormous diamond ring from her finger and placed it on the table. The wedding is off. Ariel, please. I love you. We can fix this. She looked at him one last time. No, Damon. Some things can't be fixed. That night, Ariel made a decision. She wouldn't cause a scene. She wouldn't tell anyone what she'd seen. Instead, she packed a small bag, wrote a note to her roommate, and booked a flight to her parents' home. The morning of what should have been her wedding day, Ariel was gone. No explanation, no forwarding address. She simply vanished. At the Grand Cathedral, 300 guests waited. The orchestra played. Damon stood at the altar, checking his watch, sending frantic text messages that went unanswered. After an hour, William Rourke stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears there will be no wedding today. The whispers began immediately. Had Damon Rourke been left at the altar, the tabloids would have a field day. In first class, on a flight to a destination no one knew, Ariel James stared out the window, tears streaming down her face. But behind the tears was something else, determination. Damon Rourke had no idea what he'd done or what was coming, because Ariel wasn't just disappearing, she was planning, and in 1 year, she would be back. Not to cry, not to beg, but to burn Damon's world to the ground, with a smile on her face. 1 year had passed since Ariel James disappeared on what should have been her wedding day. The gossip had eventually died down, and Damon Rourke had rebuilt his public image as the heartbroken groom who had been cruelly abandoned. She just couldn't handle the pressure of joining the Rourke family, Damon told a sympathetic reporter in an exclusive interview. Some people aren't cut out for life in the spotlight. What no one knew was that Ariel was watching every interview, reading every article, and planning her next move from a small apartment in Chicago. Look at him playing the victim, Ariel said to her new friend Teresa, a sharp-minded lawyer she'd met at a business seminar. If only they knew the truth. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Teresa asked, looking at the stack of files on Ariel's coffee table. You could just move on with your life. Ariel shook her head. I tried that for the first 3 months. It didn't work. Those first months had been the hardest. Ariel had spent them at her parents' home crying and trying to understand how she had been so wrong about Damon. Then one day, she received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a flash drive and a note that simply said, "You might find this interesting." The drive contained financial documents from Rourke Enterprises, documents showing questionable deals, offshore accounts, and properties bought with money that couldn't be traced. Ariel didn't know who had sent it, but she had suspicions. Damon's assistant, Jessica, had always been kind to her and had seemed uncomfortable around Damon's father. That flash drive changed everything. Instead of mourning what she'd lost, Ariel decided to fight back. She enrolled in business courses, hired a financial advisor with her savings, and began to dig deeper into the Rourke empire. What she discovered was shocking. Many of Damon's developments had been built using substandard materials. Environmental regulations had been ignored. Most disturbing of all, several deals had been processed using Ariel's name right before the wedding, deals she had never known about, much less approved. He was setting me up, Ariel realized. If these deals ever went bad, my name would be on the paperwork. With Teresa's help, Ariel created a shell company. Using the knowledge she'd gained, she began to quietly buy shares in Rourke Enterprises through a complex network of investors. The company's stock had taken a hit after some negative press about their latest project, making it easier for Ariel to acquire shares at a lower price. "I need to be careful," Ariel told Teresa. "If William Rourke realizes what I'm doing, he'll stop me." "How will you know when it's time to reveal yourself?" Teresa asked. "I'll know," Ariel said. "Damon will do something that will give me the perfect opportunity." That opportunity came sooner than expected. 6 months into her plan, Ariel saw the announcement in the business section of the newspaper: Rourke heir to wed Madeline Grant in spring ceremony. "Well, that didn't take long," Teresa said when Ariel showed her the article. "It's exactly what his father wanted all along," Ariel replied, her voice steady despite the pain in her heart. The merger of two powerful families. The article mentioned that the wedding would take place at Tia's same exclusive estate, where Damon and Ariel were supposed to have been married. The date was set for exactly 1 year after Ariel had left Damon at the altar. "He's trying to erase what happened," Ariel said. "He's rewriting history." "What are you going to do?" Teresa asked. Ariel's eyes hardened. "I'm going to remind him that history can't be erased that easily." By the time the wedding date approached, Ariel owned 40% of Rourke Enterprises through her shell company. She had evidence of every illegal deal, every forged signature, every environmental violation. But most importantly, she had proof that Madeline Grant had knowingly used Ariel's name and identity on several shady real estate transactions. The night before the wedding, Ariel stood in front of her mirror. She had changed in the past year. Her eyes were sharper, her posture more confident. She was no longer the naive gallery worker who had fallen for Damon's charm. "Are you nervous?" Teresa asked, helping Ariel pack for her flight to New York. "No," Ariel said. "For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I'm doing." Teresa hugged her. "Just be careful. Men like Damon and William Rourke don't like to lose." "Neither do I," Ariel replied. "Not anymore." The morning of Damon and Madeline's wedding dawned bright and clear. At the Westchester estate, staff bustled about, arranging flowers and setting up chairs for the 300 guests who would soon arrive. In his suite, Damon stared at himself in the mirror. He looked tired. The past year had been harder than he'd expected. The business was struggling with bad press. His father was pushing him harder than ever, and though he would never admit it, he still thought about Ariel every day. "You look terrible," William Rourke said, entering the room without knocking. "Pull yourself together. This wedding needs to go perfectly." "Yes, father," Damon said automatically. "The grants are essential to our new development in Manhattan. This merger," William caught himself, "this marriage will secure our position for years to come." Damon nodded, though his stomach churned at his father's words. When had business become more important than love? Had it always been this way? In another part of the estate, Madeline Grant was being helped into her designer wedding gown. Unlike Ariel, Madeline had grown up in wealth and privilege. She understood the rules of their world. "Do you think he still loves her?" Madeline asked her mother as her veil was arranged. "It doesn't matter," her mother replied. "Love has nothing to do with marriages at our level. You know that, darling." Madeline nodded, but her eyes were sad. She had always had feelings for Damon, even when he was with Ariel. But she wasn't naive enough to think this wedding was about love. It was a business arrangement, plain and simple. By noon, guests began to arrive. Business associates, political connections, socialites, all there to witness the union of two powerful families. Photographers lined the entrance, capturing every arrival for the society pages. No one noticed the sleek black car that pulled up at the service entrance, or the woman in sunglasses, who slipped inside with a garment bag over her arm. Ariel moved through the back corridors of the estate with confidence. She had memorized the layout during the planning of her own wedding. She found an empty room and quickly changed into the dress she had brought, the same wedding gown she should have worn a year ago. It still fit perfectly. Looking at herself in the mirror, Ariel took a deep breath. It's time. In the grand ballroom, the ceremony was about to begin. Guests were seated. The orchestra played softly. Damon stood at the altar, his best man beside him, his expression a mask of calm that hid his inner turmoil. The music changed. The doors at the back of the ballroom opened. Madeline appeared in her white gown, her father beside her. She began to walk slowly down the aisle, a practiced smile on her face. Halfway to the altar, the main doors of the ballroom slammed open with a bang that made everyone jump. Ariel James stood in the doorway, dressed in a white wedding gown that everyone in the room recognized from the countless wedding photos that had been planned but never taken a year ago. A collective gasp filled the room. Cameras flashed. Madeline froze in the middle of the aisle. And Damon. Damon's face drained of all color as he stared at the woman he had betrayed. "Don't stop on my account," Ariel said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "I just thought you'd want your guests to see what a real bride looks like." Whispers erupted throughout the ballroom. William Rourke stood up, his face purple with rage. "Security!" he shouted. "Remove this woman immediately." "I wouldn't do that if I were you, William," Ariel said calmly. "Not unless you want everyone in this room to know about the Sherman Heights development, or the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, or the forged permits for the Tribeca Tower." William froze. Madeline's father, Charles Grant, stepped forward. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "Ask your daughter," Ariel replied. "Ask her about the documents she signed using my name. Ask her about the money that disappeared from the Robinson Project. All eyes turned to Madeline, who had gone pale. I don't know what she's talking about," Madeline stammered. "Don't you?" Ariel opened her clutch and pulled out a folder. "I have copies for anyone who's interested. The originals are with my lawyer and the SEC." The room erupted in chaos. Guests began to whisper frantically. Photographers snapped pictures. Charles Grant grabbed his daughter's arm and pulled her aside, hissing questions that she couldn't answer. Through it all, Damon stood frozen at the altar, staring at Ariel as if he were seeing a ghost. Finally, he moved. Stepping down from the altar, he walked slowly toward her, stopping a few feet away. "Ariel," he said, his voice barely audible above the commotion. "Hello, Damon," she replied coolly. "Surprised to see me?" "Surprised." "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "Because you left me no choice." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "You used me. You betrayed me. And then you tried to make me the scapegoat for your family's dirty business." "What are you talking about?" "The papers you had me sign before the wedding. The ones you said were just formalities for joining our finances. They made me liable for developments I knew nothing about." Damon's face showed genuine confusion. "I never—" He stopped, realization dawning. "My father. It was my father." "You really didn't?" "No," Ariel asked, searching his face. Before he could answer, William Rourke pushed between them. "This is preposterous," he spat. "You're nothing but a jilted woman looking for revenge." "Is that so?" Ariel's smile was cold. "Then you wouldn't mind explaining to your shareholders why I now own 40% of Rourke Enterprises?" William's face went from red to white in an instant. "That's impossible. Check your records. The Amethyst Investment Group P has been buying shares for months. I own that group." The room had gone quiet again, everyone straining to hear the confrontation. "Oh, you can't do this," William hissed. "I already have." Ariel turned to address the stunned guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting this lovely ceremony, but I thought you should know who you are really dealing with before you congratulate the happy couple." She turned back to Damon. "By the way, I've called an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. As a major shareholder, I have some concerns about the current leadership." With that, Ariel turned and walked out of the ballroom, leaving stunned silence in her wake. It wasn't until she reached her car that she allowed herself to shake, the adrenaline finally wearing off. "It's done," she whispered to herself. Back in the ballroom, chaos reigned. The wedding was obviously cancelled. Guests were leaving in droves, eager to share the scandal they had witnessed. Charles Grant was shouting at William Rourke, demanding to know if what Ariel had said about Madeline was true. And Damon stood alone, still staring at the doors through which Ariel had disappeared. His best man approached cautiously. "Damon, what are you going to do?" Damon turned, a strange expression on his face. "I don't know. For the first time in my life, I have no idea what happens next." Across town, in a hotel suite, Ariel kicked off her heels and poured herself a glass of champagne. Her phone was already ringing with calls from reporters and business associates who had been at the wedding. She ignored them all. She had done what she came to do. She had taken back her power. But something unexpected had happened in that ballroom. When she looked into Damon's eyes, she had seen genuine shock, and beneath that, something that looked like the love she had once believed in. "It doesn't change anything," she told herself firmly. But as night fell over the city, Ariel found herself wondering if that was really true. Because despite everything, when their eyes had met across that crowded room, she had felt it again, that connection that had drawn her to him in the first place. And judging by the look on his face, so had he. But that was a problem for another day. Tonight, Ariel would celebrate her victory. Tomorrow, she would begin dismantling the corrupt empire that the Rourkes had built. And if Damon wanted to talk to her, well, he knew where to find her now. She wasn't running anymore. The morning after the wedding disaster, Ariel's face was on every newspaper in New York. "Jilted bride returns for revenge," screamed one headline. "Gallery girl brings down real estate empire," declared another. Ariel ignored them all as she prepared for the emergency board meeting she had called. Dressed in a crisp black suit, she looked nothing like the emotional bride who had crashed the wedding. Today she was all business. "Are you ready for this?" Teresa asked over the phone. "The Rourkes won't go down without a fight." "Let them fight," Ariel replied. "I have the truth on my side." The Rourke Enterprises headquarters occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. Ariel E. had visited many times during her engagement to Damon, but she had never entered the main boardroom. That space had been William Rourke's domain, and he had made it clear she wasn't welcome. Now as she stepped off the elevator, heads turned. Employees whispered behind their hands. A security guard moved toward her, but she held up her ID badge with confidence. "Ariel James, I'm expected in the boardroom." The guard checked his list and nodded reluctantly. "Yes, Ms. James, they're waiting for you." When Ariel walked into the boardroom, the atmosphere was tense. Board members and major shareholders sat around the long table, their expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. William Rourke sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. Damon sat beside him, looking tired and conflicted. "Ms. James," William said coldly, "so glad you could join us." "I wouldn't miss it," Ariella replied, taking a seat at the opposite end of the table. "After all, I do own 40% of the company." "A claim that remains to be verified," William countered. "Oh, it's been verified," said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Charles Grant, Madeline's father, entering with a team of lawyers. "My people confirmed it this morning. She controls the Amethyst Investment Group, which has indeed acquired 40% of Rourke Enterprise. Says over the past 8 months. William's face reddened. "Charles, what are you doing here?" "Protecting my interests," Charles replied coolly, "and my daughter's reputation. The documents Ms. James mentioned yesterday, they're real. Madeline's signature is on them, along with yours, William." "This is absurd." "Save it," Charles interrupted. "Madeline told me everything last night. How you pressured her to sign those papers. How you assured her it was just a formality to protect the company if the merger with the James girl went south." All eyes turned to Damon, who looked genuinely shocked. "Father, is this true?" William ignored his son, focusing instead on damage control. "Whatever misunderstanding has occurred, I'm sure we can resolve it privately." "It's too late for that," Ariel cut in. She opened her briefcase and distributed folders to everyone at the table. "These are copies of all the documents I've collected over the past year. Illegal building permits, environmental violations, tax fraud, and most importantly, documents bearing my forged signature that make me liable for projects I knew nothing about." The room fell silent as the board members flipped through the pages. their expressions growing more grave with each turn. "You plan to use me as a scapegoat if these deals went bad," Ariel continued, looking directly at William. "You never expected me to find out because you never expected me to leave Damon at the altar. But when I saw him with Madeline 2 days before our wedding, your plan fell apart." "You saw us?" Damon's voice was barely audible. Ariel met his gaze. "At the Grand Hotel in the presidential suite, 2 days before our wedding." Damon closed his eyes, the pain evident on his face. "I've been such a fool." "Yes, you have," she agreed, "but you're not the only one responsible for this mess." She turned back to the board. "I've called this meeting to propose a restructuring of leadership at Rourke Enterprises. As a major shareholder, I have the right to call for a vote of no confidence in the current CEO." "This is outrageous." William slammed his fist on the table. "I built this company." "And now you're destroying it," Charles Grant said. "The Grant family will be supporting Ms. James's motion. We control 15% of... Fail the shares." William looked around the table, suddenly realizing he was losing control. "Damon, say something." All eyes turned to Damon, who had been silent throughout most of the exchange. He looked at his father, then at Ariel, then at the documents in front of him. "I think," he said slowly, "that it's time for the truth to come out." William's face went white. "Son, don't..." "I knew nothing about these illegal activities," Damon continued, "but that doesn't excuse my failure to see what was happening in my own company, or my failure as a man." He looked directly at Ariel. "I betrayed the only woman I've ever truly loved because I was too weak to stand up to my father. I don't deserve forgiveness, but the company's employees and shareholders deserve better leadership." The room was silent for a moment. Then one of the older board members spoke up. "I move that we accept William Rourke's immediate resignation and appoint an interim CEO until a permanent replacement can be found." "I second the motion," said another. The vote was quick and decisive. By the end of the meeting, William Rourke was no longer CEO of the company he had built. As security escorted him from the building, he turned to Damon with venom in his eyes. "You're no son of mine," he spat. Damon didn't flinch. "I know. I've spent my life trying to be the son you wanted instead of the Emin I should have been." As the board members filed out, Damon and Ariel found themselves alone in the room. The tension between them was palpable. "Thank you," Damon said finally, "for forcing the truth to come out." "I didn't do it for you," Ariel replied. "I know. You did it for justice. That's who you are." He took a step toward her. "Ariel, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness." "You're right, you don't." She gathered her papers. "The board has appointed me to the transition committee. We'll be working together to stabilize the company before a new CEO is selected. So I'll be seeing you. In a professional capacity only." Damon nodded, accepting her terms. "I understand." As Ariel walked out of the boardroom, she felt a mixture of triumph and sadness. She had accomplished what she set out to do, but the victory felt hollow. Despite everything, seeing Damon still stirred feelings she thought she'd buried long ago. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. News of William Rourke's ouster sent shockwaves through the business world. Stocks initially plummeted, but began to recover when the transition team announced reforms to address the company's legal issues. Ariel threw herself into the work, determined to protect the employees who had done nothing wrong. She often worked late into the night, reviewing contracts and meeting with regulators. One evening, as she was gathering her things to leave, she found Damon standing in her office doorway. "You should go home and rest," he said. "You've been here since 7 this morning." "There's too much to do," she replied, not meeting his eyes. "The company won't collapse if you take one night off." He hesitated. "Have dinner with me." Ariel looked up, surprised. "Damon, just dinner, to discuss the Richardson project. The contractor is threatening to walk, and you know the neighborhood better than anyone." It was a transparent excuse, but Ariel found herself agreeing. "Fine, 1 hour just to discuss the project." They went to a small Italian restaurant, the same one from their first date. The owner recognized them immediately and led them to a quiet corner booth. "Some things never change," Damon said with a small smile. Luigi still makes the best lasagna in the city. And some things changed completely, Ariel replied. They talked about the Richardson project, but eventually the conversation turned personal. What happened to Madeline? Ariel asked. She moved to Europe. Her father thought it would be best to distance herself from the scandal. Damon twirled pasta on his fork. She wasn't the villain in this story, you know. She was manipulated by my father, just like I was. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, nothing excuses Tihat. He set down his fork. Ariel, I need you to know something. What happened at the hotel? It was a moment of weakness. My father had threatened to disinherit me, to remove me from the company if I married you. He said he had evidence that would destroy your reputation if I didn't end things. So instead of talking to me, you slept with Madeline? I was a coward, Damon admitted. I thought I could protect you by giving in to his demands. I was wrong, so terribly wrong. Ariel was silent for a moment. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve the truth, and because despite everything, I never stopped loving you. The words hung between them. Ariel felt her heart tighten. Love isn't enough, Damon. Trust is everything. And you destroyed that. I know. He reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. But I'm hoping that someday I might earn a second chance, not now, maybe now. Not for a long time, but someday. Ariel didn't answer. She couldn't. Because deep down, beneath the anger and the hurt, she knew that her feelings for Damon hadn't died. They had just been buried under the weight of his betrayal. As weeks turned into months, Ariel and Damon continued to work together to rebuild the company. Their professional relationship was respectful but distant. Yet there were moments, a shared smile over a successful negotiation, hands brushing as they reached for the same document, that hinted at the connection they once shared. The media eventually lost interest in the scandal, finding new dramas to report. But within the company, Ariel became something of a hero. She had exposed corruption and saved jobs. She had transformed from the jilted bride to a respected businesswoman. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, Rourke Enterprises appointed a new CEO, an experienced D-executive from outside the company who promised to maintain the reforms Ariel had implemented. With the transition complete, Ariel's role at the company was ending. On her last day, she packed up her temporary office, feeling a strange mix of emotions. She had achieved more than she ever thought possible, but what came next? A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Damon stood there holding a small box. I heard today was your last day, he said. Yes, the new CEO starts on Monday. You did an amazing job here, Ariel. The company would have collapsed without you. Thank you. She closed her briefcase. What will you do now? I'm stepping back from the company for a while. I've started a foundation to help revitalize neighborhoods affected by predatory development. It's something I've always wanted to do, but never had the courage to pursue. Ariel nodded, genuinely impressed. That sounds meaningful. I'm hoping it will be. He handed her the box. This is for you, a parting gift. Ariel hesitated before opening it. Inside was a key. What is this? The key to the penthouse. I've signed it over to you. It was always more yours than mine anyway. You designed every room. Damon, I can't accept this. Please, it's not a bribe or an attempt to win you back. It's simply returning something that should have been yours all along. He turned to leave, then stopped. I'm giving up the company shares too. I've instructed my lawyers to transfer them to your Foundation for Arts Education. Ariel stared at him in shock. That's your inheritance. An inheritance built on lies and corruption. I don't want it. His eyes met hers. I'm trying to become the man I should have been all along, the man you believed I could be. With that, he walked away, leaving Ariel holding the key and wondering if people really could change. If trust, once broken, could ever truly be rebuilt. That evening, Ariel went to the penthouse. She hadn't been there since before the failed wedding. Walking through the rooms, she was flooded with memories, both good and bad. This place represented the life she had almost had with Damon, a life that had been built on a foundation of lies. As she stood looking out over the city lights, her phone rang. It was Teresa. "How was your last day?" her friend asked. "Strange," Ariel admitted. "Damon gave me the penthouse." "He what?" "And he's giving up his company shares, transferring them to my foundation." Teresa was silent for a moment. "That's unexpected. He says he's trying to change, to be a better person." "Do you believe him?" Ariel sighed. "I don't know. Part of me wants to. The other part remembers how he betrayed me." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know that either." Ariel looked at the key in her hand. "But for the first time in a long time, I'm curious to find out." The next morning, Ariel was surprised to find Damon sitting on a bench outside her apartment building. He wasn't dressed in his usual expensive suit, but in jeans and a simple shirt. "Damon, what are you doing here?" He stood up, looking nervous in a way she had never seen before. "I need to talk to you, not about the company or the penthouse or anything else, just us." "There is no us," Ariel reminded him. "I know, and I know why." He took a deep breath. "Ariel, I've spent the past 6 months working alongside you, watching you rebuild what my father destroyed. I've seen your strength, your integrity, your compassion for people who were hurt by our company's actions. What's your point, Damon?" "My point is that I love you. Not the idea of you, not what you represent, but you. The woman who was brave enough to walk away when I betrayed her. The woman who came back not just for revenge, but for justice." Ariel felt her heart racing. "Damon, I'm not asking for anything," he continued. "I just needed you to know that if I ever meant anything to you, I'm here, ready to earn back your trust one day at a time, if you'll give me that chance." As Ariel looked at him, really looked at him, she saw not the entitled he-er who had broken her heart, but a man who had lost everything and was trying to rebuild himself from the ground up. A man who, despite his mistakes, might be worth a second chance. "I can't make any promises," she said finally, "but maybe coffee. We could start with coffee." The smile that lit up Damon's face was genuine in a way she hadn't seen since their early days together. "Coffee it is." As they walked toward the cafe on the corner, not touching, but close enough to feel each other's presence, Ariel realized that this, whatever it was, wouldn't be easy. Trust, once shattered, couldn't be repaired overnight, but maybe, just maybe, it could be rebuilt, one careful piece at a time. Like the company they had saved together, their relationship, if they chose to have one, would need a new foundation. One built on truth, respect, and the hard lessons they had both learned along the way. It wouldn't be the fairy tale romance they once had. It would be something different, something real, and for now that was enough to take the first step forward. 3 months had passed since Ariel and Damon's first coffee date. What had started as a cautious conversation had slowly evolved into something more. They met twice a week, always in public places, always with clear boundaries. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams, the people they wanted to become, but they never talked about getting back together. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Teresa asked Ariel one evening as they shared dinner at Ariel's new apartment. She had sold the penthouse Damon had given her and donated the money to a charity that helped homeless families. "He hurt you so badly before." "I know," Ariel said, "but he's different now. We both are. People don't change that much." "Maybe not, but they can learn from their mistakes." Ariel twirled pasta on her fork. "Besides, we're just friends." Teresa raised an eyebrow. "Friends who look at each other the way you two do." Ariel blushed but didn't argue. The truth was, her feelings for Damon were growing again, despite her best efforts to keep her heart guarded. Damon had kept his word about stepping back from Rourke Enterprises. He had thrown himself into his new foundation, working to repair neighborhoods that had been damaged by his family's predatory business practices. He lived in a modest apartment now, drove a regular car, and seemed genuinely committed to making amends for his past. But just as Ariel was beginning to trust again, the past came crashing back into their lives. William Rourke, who had been living in Europe since his ousting from the company, returned to New York with a vengeance. He called a press conference and publicly accused Ariel of manipulating his Esson, and orchestrating a hostile takeover of his company. "That woman seduced my son to gain access to our family business," William told the reporters. "She's nothing but a gold digger who saw an opportunity and took it." When Ariel saw the news, she felt sick. All the progress she had made, all the respect she had earned in the business world, William was trying to destroy it all with his lies. Her phone rang. It was Damon. "I've seen the news," he said, without preamble. "I'm so sorry, Ariel. This is all my fault." "It's not your fault. It's your father's. I should have stood up to him years ago. Then none of this would have happened." Damon's voice was tight with anger. "I'm going to fix this." "Damon, don't—" But he had already hung up. Damon found his father at the exclusive club, where he had always conducted his most important business. William was sitting at his usual table, looking smug as he sip-ped an expensive scotch. "I was wondering when you'd show up," William said as Damon approached. "Come to beg for forgiveness?" "No." Damon sat down across from his father. "I came to tell you to leave Ariel alone." William's smile was cold. "Or what? You've already taken my company, my reputation. What else can you possibly do to me? I can tell the truth, the whole truth, about everything. No one will believe you. They will when they see the evidence." Damon leaned forward. "Did you think I wouldn't keep copies of every illegal document you made me sign? Every shady deal you forced me to approve? I was afraid of you for a long time, Father, but I wasn't stupid." William's face paled slightly. "You wouldn't dare. You'd implicate yourself." "Yes, I would. I'm prepared to face the consequences of my actions, are you?" For the first time in his life, Damon saw uncertainty in his father's eyes. It was a small victory, but it felt significant. "What do you want?" William asked finally. "I want you to call another press conference, tomorrow, and I want you to tell the truth about Ariel, about how she exposed your illegal activities, about how she saved the company when you nearly destroyed it. And then I want you to leave New York and never come back." William's eyes narrowed. "And if I refuse, then I'll hold my own press conference with all the evidence, and you'll spend the rest of your life in prison." The two men stared at each other across the table, years of resentment and fear between them. Finally, William nodded. "Fine, you win." He drained his glass. "But know this, Damon. You are no longer my son. You are dead to me." Damon stood up. "I can live with that." The next day, William Rourke held another press conference. Looking haggard and defeated, he retracted his previous statements about Ariel. He admitted that she had exposed genuine wrongdoing within the company and had acted ethically throughout the transition. He offered no apology, but his retraction was clear. That evening, Damon called Ariel. "Thank you," she said. "Teresa just sent me the video of your father's statement." "I didn't do it for thanks," Damon replied. "I did it because it was right." "What did you say to him?" "The truth, that his actions have consequences, that he can't bully people anymore." Damon paused. "Ariel, I need to tell you something. I'm going away for a while." Ariel felt a pang of disappointment. "Where?" "The foundation is starting a new project in Detroit. Communities that were destroyed by developers like my father. I need to be there to make sure it's done right." "How long will you be gone?" "At least 6 months." There was hesitation in his voice. "I'd like to see you before I go, to say goodbye properly." "Of course," Ariel said, trying to keep the emotion out of her voice. Just when she was beginning to trust him again, he was leaving. But wasn't that what she had done to him once? Left without a proper goodbye. They agreed to meet at the park where they had once spent Sunday afternoons planning their future. It was early autumn, and the leaves were just beginning to turn gold and red. Damon was waiting on their usual bench when Ariel arrived. He looked different from the man she had first met, less polished, more real. The expensive suits had been replaced by comfortable clothes. The carefully styled hair was now more natural, but his smile when he saw her was the same. "Thank you for coming," he said as she sat beside him. "I couldn't let you leave without saying goodbye." She handed him a small package. "This is for you. A going-away present." Damon opened it to find a simple leather journal. On the first page, Ariel had written, "For new beginnings." I love it, he said, clearly touched. But I didn't get you anything. You've already given me enough. She looked at him carefully. Why Detroit, Damon? Why now? He sighed. Because I need to prove to myself that I can do this, that I can make a difference without you watching over my shoulder. I need to know that the changes I've made are real, not just an attempt to win you back. And what if they are real? What then? Damon's eyes met hers. Then I come back, and I ask you a question I have no right to ask. What question? Whether you could ever love me again, whether we could start over, not as the people we were, but as the people we've become. Ariel felt tears well up in her eyes. That's not fair. You can't ask me to wait for you. I'm not asking you to wait. I'm asking you to live your life, be happy. And when I come back, if you're still single and if your heart is open, maybe we can see where things go. Part of Ariel wanted to be angry. Another part wanted to beg him to stay. But the strongest part, the part that had grown so much over the past year, understood what he was doing and respected him for it. I can't make any promises, she said. I'm not asking for promises, just possibilities. As they sat in the fading afternoon light, Ariel realized how far they had Beau. They'd come from that day when she had discovered his betrayal. The pain was still there, but it had changed, transformed into something that had made them both stronger. Goodbye, Damon, she said softly. Not goodbye, he corrected her. See you later. The months after Damon left were busy ones for Ariel. She launched her art foundation, which focused on bringing arts education to underprivileged schools. She bought a small gallery in her old neighborhood. She even started painting again, something she had loved as a teenager but had abandoned when real life took over. She dated occasionally, but no one held her interest for long. They weren't Damon. Despite everything, despite her best efforts to move on, he still occupied a place in her heart that no one else could fill. Winter turned to spring, spring to summer. Ariel received occasional emails from Damon about the progress in Detroit. They were friendly but professional, never crossing the line into anything more intimate. She respected his determination to prove himself without using their connection as a crutch. Then one hot August day, Teresa burst into Ariel's gallery with a newspaper in her hand. Have you seen this? She demanded, spreading the paper on Ariel's desk. The headline read, Rourke heir gives up fortune to rebuild Detroit neighborhoods. The article detailed how Damon had liquidated his remaining assets, properties, investments, family heirlooms, and poured everything into his foundation's work. He was living in one of the neighborhoods he was helping to rebuild, working alongside local residents. He really did it, Ariel whispered, reading the article. He gave up everything. There's more, Teresa said, pointing to the end of the article. He's coming back to New York next week for a fundraising event. Ariel's heart skipped a beat. After 6 months without seeing him, without hearing his voice, the thought of Damon being back in the same city made her dizzy with anticipation. Are you going to see him? Teresa asked. I don't know, Ariel admitted. He hasn't called. Maybe he's waiting for you to make the first move. The day of the fundraiser arrived, and Ariel still hadn't decided whether to attend. She stared at the invitation, delivered to her office a week early, trying to decipher its meaning. Was it a professional courtesy or something more? In the end, she chose not to go. If Damon wanted to see her, he knew where to find her. She wouldn't chase him. That evening, as she worked late at the gallery, the bell over the door jingled. She looked up, expecting to see Teresa, who had promised to bring dinner. Instead, Damon stood there, looking tired but happy. His skin was tanned from working outdoors, his frame leaner but stronger. The fundraiser ended early, he said simply, and there was somewhere else I needed to be. Ariel's heart raced. How was Detroit? Hard, important, the best thing I've ever done. He stepped further into the gallery, looking around at the artwork. This place suits you. It feels like you. Thank you. She moved from behind the desk, suddenly unsure what to do with her hands. I saw the article, about you giving away your fortune. Damon shrugged. It was never really mine. It was built on other people's pain. I couldn't keep it. Most people would have. I'm not most people. Not anymore. He looked at her intently. I've missed you, Ariel, every day. I've missed you too, she admitted, but I wasn't sure if you wanted me to say that. I've wanted to hear those words for 6 months. He took a step closer. I didn't call because I promised myself I wouldn't until I had something to offer you besides words. Actions matter more than promises. And what are you offering now? Just me. The real me. Not the heir to a corrupt empire. Not the man who betrayed you. Just Damon. A man who loves you and wants a chance to prove it every day for the rest of his life. Ariel felt tears prick her eyes. That's quite an offer. It's the only one that matters. He reached for her hand, and this time, she let him take it. Ariel James, I have loved you from the moment you refused to let me into that charity event without an RSVP. I loved you even when I didn't deserve your love in return, and if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life earning back what I threw away. Damon, wait, before you answer, there's something else. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. I want you to have this. Ariel opened it confused. Inside was a photo of the chapel where they were supposed to have been married 2 years ago. Behind the altar, spray-painted across the stained glass in bold red letters were the words, I loved you once. Don't make me regret it twice. She looked up at him confused. What is this? My answer to a question you haven't asked yet, whether I'm worth a second chance. You spray-painted a church? A small smile tugged at his lips. The church is being demolished next week. The new owners gave me permission. I wanted to make a statement. It's certainly that. Ariel couldn't help but laugh. You're crazy, you know that. Crazy about you. Always have been. His expression grew serious again. I don't expect an answer right away. I know trust takes time to rebuild. I just want a chance, Ariel. One more chance to get it right. Ariel looked at the man before her, so different from the entitled heir she had first met, yet somehow more himself than he had ever been. The pain of his betrayal would always be part of their story, but it didn't have to be the end of it. I can't promise it will be easy, she said finally. We've hurt each other, we've changed, we're not the same people who fell in love before. I know. He squeezed her hand. That's what makes this real. We're choosing each other with open eyes. No more secrets? No more secrets. No more letting other people control our lives? Never again. Ariel took a deep breath. 2 years ago, she had walked away from Damon to protect herself from more pain. Cherie had returned a year later, seeking justice. Now she stood before him, not as a victim or an avenger, but as a woman who had found her strength, a woman who could choose love without losing herself. One more chance, she said. That's all I can promise right now. The smile that lit up Damon's face was worth every moment of doubt. He pulled her gently into his arms, and as their lips met for the first time in 2 years, Ariel felt something she had thought was lost forever. Hope. They had a long way to go. Trust, once broken, took time to heal completely. But they had both learned that the hardest journeys were often the most worthwhile. Outside the gallery window, the city lights twinkled against the darkening sky. Inside, 2 people who had lost their way found each other again. Not in the fantasy of a perfect love story, but in the messy, complicated truth of real life. It wasn't the ending either of them had once imagined. It was better, because this time it was built on truth. 6 months later, Ariel stood in the small chapel of her hometown church. It wasn't the grand cathedral where she and Damon had once planned to marry. There were no celebrities, no photographers, no society pages to report on the event. Just family, just friends, just love. As Damon waited for her at the altar, his eyes never leaving hers, Ariel felt not the nervous excitement of a bride marrying a wealthy heir, but the steady certainty of a woman choosing a partner who had proven his worth. This time, when they said their vows, they weren't promises of a fairy tale. They were commitments to stand by each other through whatever life brought, the good and the bad, the easy and the hard. And when they kissed as husband and wife, it wasn't for the cameras or the guests. It was for themselves, a seal on a journey that had begun with betrayal but had led through pain and growth and forgiveness to something true. In the end, Ariel hadn't just reclaimed her dignity or her power, she had reclaimed her heart. And in giving it to Damon a second time, with eyes wide open and on her own terms, She had found the kind of love that lasts, not perfect, but real, and that made all the difference. The end.